Hi, my name is Harry Tie and welcome to Odejuma. Odejuma is an Ishekiri farewell that loosely translates to till tomorrow. But for me, I look at it as a promise that there is so much more in life to look forward to. And this interview-driven storytelling podcast is rooted in that promise. So as you take the time to listen, I want you to feel that as we go deeper with folks from across the Black diaspora, exploring the adventures, resilience, joy, and the ordinary moments that change their lives, that you would have a good, hearty laugh or you find something to sit with. Because there's power in the stories of everyday people, and these stories are worth telling. Hi, welcome to another episode of Odejuma. My name is Harry. I'm super excited that you're back and joining us. Before we go straight into the episode, wherever you're listening to this podcast right now, I want you to click the follow button. If it's Apple Podcast, if it's Spotify, if it's Amazon Music or iHeart, wherever it is you're listening us from, please follow. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you use the subscribe button so you can always get notified when there's new content on here. I'm super excited. I'm on my guest today. I have Tolu Ekisola, who's like a very brilliant artist. Hi, Tolu. How are you? Welcome to Odejuma.
Hi, everybody. Hello. This is so cool. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. And I've been following you for a bit. I think your work speaks for itself, and I'm just really ready to dive in. To get to know you a little bit better and to get our listeners to also know you some more. So before we even start, so how about you introduce yourself to the people? Who are you? What do you do? Everything you're willing to share.
I'm loving it. My name is Tolu Ekisola. I am a Nigerian-American artist. I dabble in many things, but my heart is in organizing, and I use my art as a tool to organize community members from the Black, Indigenous, African diaspora to move forward in democratic unity and find joy and peace and care in their daily lives, and to build empathy for one another.
Awesome.
Sweet.
I love that. I feel like I'm going to steal that at some point.
Take it, it's yours.
But yeah, you say you're Nigerian-American, right? So there's the Nigerian experience. You were born in Nigeria, grew up in Minneapolis. What was that experience like for you? Just from because I know that it had to be very interesting to say.
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I grew up in a very privileged society. I think growing up, sometimes I look at my cousins back home, I'm like, wow, I wish I had the toughness, the grit that they have. Me, I'm soft. In fact, you asked me how I introduce myself. I'm a softie. I always introduce myself as a softie because I just grew up lush. I grew up in New Hope, Minnesota, which at the time was suburbia, and then moved into deeper suburbia, moved into Rogers. And for those of you who don't know, Rogers is a very conservative area. And then went to undergraduates in Duluth, Minnesota, which is the very nice liberal white people who have never interacted with Black people before. And then, going down to Irvine, California, which is another very conservative area in a very liberal state with a lot of wealth, with a lot of money. I mean, just the story I always tell people is that the moment I realized I was in utopia was this day I drove from Target back to class, and I overheard a sound and looked up, and it was a flock of parrots, a flock of wild parrots. This is utopia. This is where people want to buy land and live, and you have to have the money to afford to live there. I think growing up, I didn't really realize the extent in which racism is ingrained into every single aspect of American society. And that was just because growing up, and my Nigerian peers are not going to like this, but growing up, you're told as a Nigerian person, you're not one of them, you're different. And I really took that to heart, yeah, I'm special. And I still believe that to this day, that our culture, our heritage is truly unique, is truly special. And that, there was a time around 2020 where I realized if somebody saw me on the street, they're not going to think, oh, let me not shoot her because she's Nigerian. They'd see me as Black. and I had to really kind of integrate my American identity into how I see myself as just like a Naija bush girl, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. It's when you talk about that post 2020. I think that a lot of folks who, I mean, even going online, there's like diaspora wars constantly happening. Whether it's between Black, African American folks and African folks and Black Brits and Caribbean
Yeah,
folks. There's always
it's
a
true.
level of what we call diaspora war. Sometimes it isn't good fun, but sometimes it unearths biases on all sides that people may have had of each other. When, like you said, in general, we are all navigating the society as Black people. Nobody's
Mm-hmm.
gonna know. Maybe when they hear you speak, but when they
Mm-hmm.
see you, they see a Black person. So how has your new found, because also you're sharing how you've grown up predominantly in white spaces all this time. How has this shift changed how you interact and how you see yourself as a Black person living in this predominantly white society right now in
Yeah.
2026?
I mean, it's so interesting. I have to like humble myself because I am a suburban girl. Like at the end of the day, I grew up in suburbia. I think this, we'll talk about this maybe a little bit later, but I think that's why I'm so passionate now about bringing Yoruba culture into language, specifically back into our community, and really highlighting the importance of it, because I didn't you know, the Minnesota Nigerian community is very vast. Like, we are connected, and there's a lot of us here. And our parents did their best to raise us in the culture. And I really, really value that. But one thing that wasn't as valued was our language. And unfortunately, a lot of us can't speak Yoruba now, and I think that's really disappointing. I think that's something that needs to be remedied. And so I think about myself as this Nigerian woman, and it shows up in the way I come into spaces. I come in with that like culture and the pride that my parents taught me to have in myself, and the rootedness that I have in myself. And I have to acknowledge that I'm not fully one, I'm not fully the other. I'm a little bit of both.
Okay, I like that. Holding both identities simultaneously. You know what I'm
Of
saying? That's
course.
pretty that is pretty cool. We know you a lot from your artistic practice, right? Theater is your
Yeah.
main medium. Where did you discover that theater was what you were gonna use to start to engage with the arts in general?
Yeah, I grew up dancing, and it was like a lot. One thing I'm realizing now is that I kind of went through life just like one thing into another, kind of bouncing into one thing into another. And I was encouraged a lot by my mentors and theater professors and teachers, and pulled into spaces like, you need to be here, you need to be here, by people who had come before me. And so I just kind of like went with the flow until I realized that actually I really enjoy the storytelling, the aspects of figuring out how to integrate the story into the experiences that we're having right now. So that's when I started writing and wrote my first play in grad school, and, was given the opportunity to produce it on the main stage. And the complexity came in at that point, if I'm just going to be very honest. It was like, I don't want these white people to own my work. So I was just like, I think I'm going to self produce. And so as I'm kind of entering into this new phase of my life, I'm realizing that I see a lot of value in ownership and in having full control of my own work. And there's some pros and cons to that. If I were to tell somebody that I'm mentoring, I would say, you have to find a balance and, take away your ego a little bit. But I really think that, again, these stories that we have in our culture, like Olodumare, like there's just well, like all of the stories that we have from our roots, from our culture, even like the aspect of like Nigerian movies. Like, we all grew up watching Nigerian movies and the drama, but you know what was the story was always lit.
Yeah.
Like, the story was always on point. The production value, okay, well,
Hmm.
they didn't have the resources,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
their
Resources were
stories.
lacking. Yeah.
So I love that. I love idea. My dad was a radio host in Nigeria. He was the founder of I don't even remember the name now, to be honest. Radio. excuse me. So he founded a radio. So he's always been like, I can think about when I was 4 and he was like, okay, you're going to record the voice message, the home message for everybody.
Yeah, it's so
So he's always
cool.
been encouraging of like the artistic work that I've been doing. And my mom is very big into traditional weddings here in Minnesota. She's like the main alaga in the state. And so
Shout out to your mom.
shout out to my mom. I love my mother. She's the best. And so I think the arts will always encourage my brothers, are into music. My eldest brother is an amazing writer, an amazing lyricist, poet. Just everybody in our family is very creative. So I think on one end they were like, lawyer, doctor, engineer, but I think really they were like encouraging the arts.
So the arts basically is like it's like in your blood. Basically, you were born with
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
gift. Okay, shout out to
For
that.
sure. For sure. Shout
Yeah, but
out.
you talked about, you got formal training from, University of Minnesota Duluth, and you went to, Irvine for your MFA as well. What has those experiences to get like formal training in your artistic practice? How has that
Yeah.
influenced you and your work moving forward, and how you like own your voice through that process?
Yeah, I think I would have been less radical. Like if I had not I was already working as an actor before I got into school, but you're Nigerian, like your parents are not going to let you just go off and do any kind of thing. So,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
um, so, so they were like, you have to go to school. I took a year off after school. I was like, no, I'm just going to be an artist. And they were like, eh. So they made me go to, if it was up to me, I would have never gotten a higher education. I would have just gone up and done theater. And if I'd taken that path, I think I would be a completely different person. I would be an artist and just like very unaware, I think, very privileged in the fact that like my connections have built something for me and maybe I'd be in New York and, I would have had an entirely different kind of artistic life. But because I went through the education path, I saw a lot of inequities and I had to also stand up for myself in a way that I think had I gone the other path, I would have had like those mentors and people like that path was the path of people just kind of stood up for me and like made way for me. And in this path, I really had to make way for myself and what I truly believed in. And um, one an amazing art writer, Bianca. I'm not gonna say her last name. Noah. I don't remember how you say her last name, but she kind of said that like in her writing, she noticed that there is a structured kind of way that the Western world sees writing, and that outside of that structure, it's almost as if it's invalid. And so a lot of the ways in which I saw the world and some of the things that I was passionate about in terms of like just equality and just, how do we identify ourselves as human beings? How do we care for one another? How do we see kind of the hardships that we've gone through and integrate psychology into the arts, into, just figuring out how humans work. It was like, no, we want you to be a commercial product. And that's great. But I realized it wasn't really what I was into. And it almost felt at that point like my work wasn't valid. And that was hurtful. And it was a little confusing. And I I wasn't expecting that. I definitely thought I'd go into an educational environment and have the room to explore and try different things. And it really, I think, theater education was like kind of pumping out a specific kind of artist that I just wasn't.
Oh wow. That is so interesting to learn. Also the first time I'm having that perspective, looking back at that journey, it sounds very bittersweet for you. Or am
Mm-hmm.
I reaching in that in that
Yeah,
regard?
I mean, it was fine. It was fun. I learned and I grew and I went a different direction. I think I still use all the tools that I gained. I just use them in a different way. So I still, I'm still a musical theater nerd. I still love the craft, but it just made me realize, I think as a whole, outside of education, even as a whole, any industry, I always try to give the caveat that this is in any industry, but I can only speak from my experience. But in the theater industry, I mean, theater is based off of vaudeville. Vaudeville was based off of minstrelsy. Like we can't not acknowledge the root of the industry that we're in. And because of that, I often felt like clowning. I love a good clown, but I didn't feel I didn't feel that there was enough of a holistic picture of Black people. Like a lot of the shows that I was part of or saw were all these like enslaved kind of like stories. And again, I'm in Orange County, California, right? And this is like the privileged of the privileged. Some of the most expensive real estate. The Real Housewives, Orange County. Y'all never seen that. That was the OG. Like the privileged of the privileged. And I'm on stage trying to, as an artist, bare my soul, tell them a story, tell them what's really going on, how we feel. And at the end, I could just like the glaze in the eye, like you don't see me at all. What did I just do that for? I just exposed myself and it felt gross. It felt like I was being used. And so I think as I look again at the larger industry, I think, how can I create space for us? Like, how do I create that space? How do I share our stories in a way that, like, even what's the movie that just came out? The Somali movie that's at MSPP right now, the film festival.
I don't even know. I
Oh,
saw it on NPR. Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're
Even
talking
that.
about. Yeah.
Like, they were just like, why are we seeing all the Somali movies are just like, these war stories. Like, we just want to be like, we fall in love and we have a good summer and like, we just want to be people and be seen as normal people. And those are the stories that I felt more interested in telling. And I realized that I felt like I had to make them myself and write them myself and produce them myself. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. So I'm guessing that led you to CAARE Productions. Can you talk a little bit about CAARE Productions for us?
Absolutely. CARE has 3 core goals. We want to clarify the intention behind criminalization. Why do people go to jail? What is a criminal? We want to improve the education system as a whole. Is entitled to a decent education and why? And we want to clarify the benefit of environmental well-being, that there's a connection between people, the water, the earth, and that we are being helpful and conditional stewards of those resources that we've been given. And so we do that through the arts and through the humanities. And we do that through community building. And so at Yoruba, this Yoruba language class is my way of like starting where my roots are. We know how to move forward if we don't know where we're from. And it's another form of community building. I've been gone from Minnesota for how long? Duluth. In fact, most of my Nigerian peers, they grew up in Brooklyn Park in Minneapolis. I was in Rogers. When was the last time they saw me? So it's like 10 years, 10, 15 years that I've seen some of my people I grew up with. We went to, Nigerian parties together. We went to birthdays, anniversaries, graduations. Like, we saw each other all the time. Only, I haven't been around. So this is my way of like, hey guys, I'm back. I want to reconnect. I love you guys. I'm here for you guys. I want to be around. I want to be somebody that you can depend on. And so this is my way of proving that.
Awesome. Are your folks still in Rogers? That's a little bit of a sidebar. I'm just out of curiosity. Or is everybody now back
my mom
in like the Twin Cities?
Yeah. My mom is still in Rogers. My dad lives in Nigeria full time, so that's nice because I get to go over and hang out whenever I want.
Okay, cool. I know part of, like you mentioned, Eko Yoruba as one of the things that you're trying to do for community building to, talk about, Yoruba culture a little bit more right now in the Twin Cities. How would you say your relationship with Yoruba culture has evolved as someone who, it's a very different experience, right? If you're not living in Nigeria or not living in a place where your culture is the main culture, right? In this, I know you grew up around the culture, right? Here, but also it was also a very different type of engagement, right?
Yeah.
As an adult, how has your relationship with that culture evolved, and how is that influencing the work that you're going to be doing with Eko Yoruba?
I mean, I think one misconception, I've never been to Nigeria. I go to Nigeria every two years. Like every 2-3 years, I go to Nigeria. Like I'm back home all the time. And the thing is, like, my family, we don't come from, my mom, my mom's dad was like a teacher. My dad's dad was a, what's it called? A business owner. Like he owned a small shop. Like we go to the bush. Like we're in Ekiti, we're in Lagos. Like we're not in Victoria Island. We have family there, but really when I go home, I go and I am in the bush. Like I'm at home. And so one part of that is like, I still look American. I still look American. So they're like, if you're going outside, make sure you walk around with your cousins. Slowly over time, I've started to be comfortable walking around. But I'll tell you a story. One time I was at my dad's house and I went to go and get like a Coca-Cola. And this guy was like, wow, where are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from up north. I'm from north. I don't know anything about Hausaland at all. I was like, yeah, I'm from north. He's like, wow, where north? I was like, oh, you won't know it. He was like, oh, where did you go to school? Did you go to school north? I was like, yeah, I went to school north. He's like, what school did you go to? I said, oh, you won't know it. I just lie because, for me, as I will say, for me as growing up here and not, go and visiting, still, it's still touch and go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would say that overall, the older I get, the more pride I have in my Yoruba language and culture, and the more I want to connect with it, because I think growing up here in the U.S. is like, I have a grasp of, and it's difficult sometimes. I'll even say it's hard sometimes to navigate spaces that are not fully Yoruba. Like I do feel more comfortable in spaces that are fully Yoruba because I know I can be my free self because we're loud, we're expressive, we're, all of these things. And I have to kind of pull back in other spaces. But then that's different from being in Black American spaces. I mean, it gets very complex. It's different from being in Black American spaces, different from being in completely white spaces, et cetera, et cetera. But I will say that I think a lot about, I was having a conversation yesterday with the person that I'm with right now. And I was saying, like, what do you think about, what would having kids look like? And why do you want to have kids? Like, I've been thinking a lot about that lately. Why do you even want to have kids? Because it just seems like the thing that you wanted, that you do, it's just like the correct next step. But like, why? Thinking really about like, is it just because it's what I'm supposed to do? When I think about that, I also think about like how I think it has to be more than just passing on material things. Like you don't just have kids so you can pass your junk on to the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
But when I do think about the next generation, I think about how embarrassing, honestly, this is what I think, to be honest. I think it's embarrassing if our kids have no tie to their language because we don't have a direct tie to our language. Like how embarrassing for us as people who came here, for me and my story, like we came as political refugees because, like I said, my dad was a radio host and he was, during the time of Obasanjo, he was saying things about, telling the truth about the political atmosphere, and he was targeted. So he had to leave. And, my parents made a huge sacrifice to come to the United States. And so in honoring the sacrifice that they made, I didn't have a choice. I was 4 years old. I didn't have a choice about whether or not I moved to the United States. But that doesn't mean that I can just let slip by this like hearty part of who I am and where I'm from and what I'm rooted to. And so I think as I get older, the more passionate I feel about the fact that we have to be stewards and we can't just, without thinking, let go of this important part of who we are. And I think we're all feeling that way, especially since like Afrobeats is becoming cool. I think Afrobeats really did that for us. Like Ashake, like, oh, you want Logbanju? Like you had to learn the lyrics, otherwise, like you can't claim it, And it feels cool to know the lyrics at the club. So like they did that for us in a way too. Ashake, Wizkid, even D'banj back in the day, like they all did that for us for a while. But now it's on us. Like nobody's coming to save you. Nobody else can make you put that investment into yourself and into your community in that way. That's on you to do. And I don't say that in like a judgmental way. Like at all. It's really more like how are you going to steward this gift that you've been given? And I think
Mm,
about it that way, in a gift.
that's pretty interesting. I look at it from a very interesting perspective, also because of, I feel like a lot of the many cultures in Nigeria, whether it's Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, or I like me, Urobo, Shekiri, the smaller
Mm-hmm.
ones, the bigger ones, um, through colonialism, everything kind of shifted, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the parts of who we are have merged into, whether it is Judeo-Christianity or through Islam or through just
Right.
globalization, and our cultures keep changing and keep shifting, and talking about how we got to be still, there are little pieces that we still got to hold on to, right, of our
Right.
culture.
Right.
Language is very important. I mean, pidgin is now the default. Everybody just defaults to pidgin, which I kind of like, low key.
I like it too. Yeah.
But I think that there is, like you said, there needs to be a little bit of intention behind holding on to those pieces of your culture, so that it doesn't really shift. And even being living in the US and seeing, I think I learned it from African Americans a lot, African Americans
Mm-hmm.
holding on to Black American culture because it's been so commodified, it's been so appropriated by everybody, and everybody's profiting off this culture, and so I see how you go to New Orleans or you go down south and you see folks
Yeah.
holding on to elements of their culture regardless of what society thinks. And I know it's just really nice to see everybody in the Black diaspora is doing their best, right, to
Yeah.
hold on
Yeah.
to the thing. So being stewards, I really connect with that piece of what you said.
And I'll even say that, cultures shift, and that's okay. The issue becomes when they shift without intention.
Mm,
They just shift thoughtlessly. I was listening to a TikTok the other day about this guy was talking about how, how religion was, how the colonization of Yoruba religion and Yoruba like deities made the Yoruba deities like demonic. And
yes, yes,
and so we then grow up Christian and say, oh, that's just demonic. And we don't actually interrogate, like, why would they say that? What are these deities? And even if we don't, like, why do we learn about the Greek gods? Why are the Greek gods cool? But then,
yes, yes,
Orishas are it's seen as
yeah,
demonic and witchy and whatever. Like, it's just something that has to be interrogated.
yes. Because I feel like even learning about issue and how issue is not the devil, So
Exactly.
that is something that,
Like the trickster.
yes,
Yeah.
there was the trickster god. So it's like all these things that you think but because of,
Yeah.
like I said, everything both, it's just very interesting how colonization, white supremacy, it's just something that is just the effects are everywhere. You can't just take it out
Mhm.
of history, how we move. It's just so deep. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
the air we breathe, the water we swim in, like it is
Yes, the
everywhere. It's
politics is
everything.
it's just so much. I feel like we have to be very intentional in how we are. I don't want to say maybe decolonizing is the word, right? But we have to be
Mm-hmm.
intentional in just how we just interrogate, like, why do we do things that we do? Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that is rooted in some of these systems, and this that is set to erase our contributions, who we are, our history, our culture, which is why your work is important in being like stewards of that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you saying that as well.
Yeah. And even, I mean, a little larger than that, even is like, it's a system of like manipulation and control. Like
Mm,
it's not just Black people that are affected by white supremacy. White people are affected by white supremacy. Everybody is affected as long as you are being kind of like, and me, like, where's my tinfoil hat? Because I'm a complete conspiracy theorist. Like, as long as you are just like accepting everything as truth, I think that's why I also had a hard time in college and didn't want to go to college because I know I have issues with authority. Is like, you can't just
mhm.
tell me something and expect me to believe it. Like,
Yeah.
I have to go and look for it myself. But anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Right now, you're also the manager of community organizing at Mixed Blood. I love
Yeah.
Mixed Blood and the work that Mixed Blood is doing. How is that going for you, but also how are you managing that with your own personal work and your own personal artistic practice? It seems
Yeah.
like a lot to kind of like balance out sometimes.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And I'm sure you know too, Harry, like you're doing a lot. A lot of good things, but we're all doing, we're all trying to balance everything. I love mixed blood. Honestly, like I said, I'm a huge softie, and mixed blood just has the space that we're in, this building, the people, they just have a way of like really letting you be seen. For example, my boss the other day was just like, Tolu, you're a Black woman. Like, people are going to try to run over you and talk over you, and you have to stand your ground. Like, that was the first time a person in authority has ever like validated that I am a Black, like that life is different for me in business as a Black woman, and
Yeah.
encouraged me in that way. And so I was just like, let that be the audience's experience of mixed blood. Like, you're seen here, you're valued here. They don't take anything lightly when it comes to treating their artists well. And the work that I do is like super integrated into what I do. In fact, I think I got this job because of CAARE, because I was already doing the stuff with CAARE. And they're like, well, you're already like building community, so come and do it here. The work that I do is really just like connecting. We have 4 pillars here. So similar to CARE, Mixed Blood has like affordable housing, racial equity, healthcare. They have these specific pillars, climate resilience. And so I connect partners in the community, businesses, organizations, individuals with Mixed Blood's work. One thing that we're doing that's really cool right now is we have a play coming up called The Pasture. There's so many cool things, but I'll talk about The Pasture. So The Pasture is a play on affordable housing, and it's set in a church, and there's a bunch of different people there who are experiencing housing insecurity for several reasons, and the pastor there is having a hard time of letting go of the church. Meanwhile, a bunch of developers are coming in trying to convert the church to shared workspaces, to housing, to an independent, to just like one person's house. Like a mix of developers are coming in hoping to take that space and reuse it. And it's a conversation about like, how is affordable housing actually accomplished? Like literally, like what are
Yeah.
the statutes? How much financing does it take? What are the complexities in terms of zoning? So Mixed Blood is using this play with partnerships with organizations like CAARE Housing, MSP or MPS, to give the public actual information that is going to be
Yeah.
useful and clarifying for why we don't have affordable housing, because it's actually so expensive to convert
Yeah.
convert a space than to just like build new. And then engaging those partners in conversation to then move policy forward. And so that's what I get to do all day, and I really like it.
Shout out to that. That's pretty
shout out to
cool.
shout out to me. Shout out to Mixed Blood.
I know you mentioned that this is you're a softie, but I also want to add, what does joy look like for you in this season that we're in right?
Oh my goodness, peace, Lord Jesus. I have had a very tumultuous life, from moving to Minnesota. I haven't stayed in one place for more than 5 years in my whole life. In my whole life, no more than 5 years.
So how long have you been in the Twin Cities for now?
So now I've been here since 2022, so about 4 years. And since, I mean, like, I haven't lived in one place still. Like, I moved from, my apartment in South Minneapolis to, I bought a house in North Minneapolis. And now, I'm living with my man, and renting out that house. And so
Mm-hmm.
like, but I'm like finally figuring out how to slow down and settle, because I'm just like very ADHD, like have to do something, and learning to just like peace, to just like do less,
Yeah.
except, a large part of that too is like wanting to prove myself. Like the arts
Mm-hmm.
don't get enough love. They don't get
Yeah.
enough respect. And so part of that is just like, you guys, I'm doing good work, and like being very like this
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
this about, and I think just like, you know what? The work I'm doing is great. I'm
Yeah.
enough. Life is
Yeah.
good. I love the people around me. I love my people, and my people love me, and that's enough. And so I'm very glad to be in that state of life. I think I really respect and admire. And I know this term is like very controversial nowadays because of TikTok, but sometimes I'm jealous of people who are just like loved and just like feel very comfortable in their own skin and are just very like easygoing and it feels like things are very easy for them. And I'm realizing, I think in therapy, shout out to therapy, everybody should go. I think I'm realizing that just like I need to, and I think we all are, right, in the public kind of
Yeah.
zeitgeist, realizing that we need to do more introspection and figure
Yeah.
out, interrogate why we're jealous of people, why we have
Mm-hmm.
these, like negative feelings, and why we don't just create the world that we want for ourselves. And I think a part of that is just like the pressures that we feel to impress and the pressures that social media creates in terms of like everybody's living the perfect life, or so it seems. And really just like cultivating what your life looks like for you without having to prove or show it. And sometimes that's hard. The quiet life in this day and age feels hard.
It is, yeah. I think, yeah, that's the struggle that I go through personally, but I get it. I get it. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So before our final question, we have some rapid fire questions we want to hear from you. The first one is, what are 3 songs that are on your playlist right now that you really, really love?
Well, obviously, I'm in this place. I'm listening to Tercha all the time, and Heather Robinson. I'm not gonna remember that lady's last name, but the music is so dope. Come see it. Regina Spektor's on that list, and of course, Ashake.
Okay, okay. Everybody loves Ashake. He does like really, really great stuff. What is your
He's so
favorite
good.
theatrical production ever?
Okay, it needs to be retired, but it's Rent. Like we can't do Rent anymore. Like the time has passed. The kids don't get it. Like, but I do love the music. I mean, it's so the song that always gets me is how does it go? It goes, "This nightmare." It's just such a bop.
I am sure that Rent is gonna be around for a while.
No, no.
Because I think that everybody wants it to be retired, but a lot of people seem to love Rent.
It is.
And
It
new
is.
generations keep discovering it, so
Yeah, it's
Uh,
true. It's true.
yeah. What is a Yoruba word or phrase that you wish more people knew?
But I feel like this is very common, but I wish more people used it. And it's mabinu. I love mabinu. Like, on one hand, mabinu means like don't be angry or like I'm sorry or like my bad. But I also love of the Yoruba culture that like a simple accent could change the meanings. Mabinu is like fine, be mad, or like
Mhm.
mabinu, which is like I'm sorry. So I love the duality of purpose.
Okay, okay, cool. What is your guilty pleasure right now?
Going to Burlington. I can't go to Target anymore. We're boycotting Target. And so I feel like Burlington has the same vibe. Like it has little cute trinkets. It's kind of,
Yeah,
I mean, you would think for a consignment store it would be cheaper, but it is not cheap over there.
yeah.
But they have cute
The
stuff.
consignment stores don't be consignmenting
They
anymore.
don't be consignmenting.
Everything is, even vintage doesn't. It's not vintage anymore. Nothing is.
Listen, but that's my guilty pleasure.
What a time! But shout out to Burlington.
Shout out to
What
Burlington.
I know. What is one word for where you are right now in your life?
Rooted. I would say rooted. Yeah,
Shout out
just
to Rooted. I
rooted.
love that. I love that.
Hallelujah.
Now, for folks who are going to be experiencing you for your work for the first time, the work that you're doing in community, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's through Equate Yoruba or through your theatrical work, just organizing in general, what do you want them to feel and experience when they encounter your work?
I want them to feel seen and cared for. I think again, we don't so right now I think one big push that I would ask for community members is to learn about story circles and go and do a story circle in your community. The reason I say that is because we are not used to just being seen, like giving space and time without comment, without opinion, just like 5 minutes to share what's on your mind and nobody gets to comment on it. I think the idea of being seen is vulnerable, and that sometimes the idea of vulnerability is associated with weakness. But there's so much strength and power in vulnerability, and I want people to feel okay being their fullest and truest selves with me and in the work that I do. So valued, cared, and seen would be the things that I try to give into the community.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you, Tolu. This has been such great conversation.
Yeah,
I've
thank you. This
learned
has been awesome.
I've learned a lot. It's been very rooted for me, if I could think for
Period.
if I could borrow your words, I really enjoy getting to know you, and I hope our listeners have enjoyed getting to know you as well. What projects do you have? Where can folks find you and check you
Ooh,
out?
yeah, I mean, the best place is probably to, I don't be posting much anymore about what's going on in my life, but I would say I'll try to do better at posting what's going on my Instagram. You can follow me. I pop up on TikTok here and there, same username. And then, check out some of Mixed Blood's engagement work, and you can follow them at Mixed Blood Theater and look at their website as well. Oh, and then I will say, probably the best way right now to keep up with me is through my blog, and that's Royal Coils by T-E, and the website is very complicated, but I'm going to say the whole thing anyway. It's www.royalcoils blog.wordpress.com, and I
Okay.
just be posting everything that's going on. I do a vlog every couple of months, share a little bit about my perspective on the industry, a little bit of my work, and just kind of vibe and keep up. It's something I'm doing kind of as a passion project, as a hobby, but I love writing, so you can keep up with me there.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tolu. We very
Yeah,
much appreciate it. We appreciate you and your
of
work in
course.
community. And for
Yeah.
folks who listen to us, we really appreciate you for checking out this episode. I will leave out all the links to Tolu's work in the description so you can check it out. Don't forget to follow wherever you listen to your podcast, and also on YouTube if you're watching us live right now. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Odejuma.